Alright, what is going on, guys? This is Jbird, and today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different, a lot different, just because I've never done something like this before. We're going to be making a sniper weapon tier list. I don't know whether you guys like tier lists or not. I think this is pretty relevant to the channel. I've got a good opinion, I would say, on most of these things, 2,400 hours on sniper, and maybe just give you guys a little bit of insight as to how I view the class and how I play it, because, I get a lot of people ask me what's best primary, best secondary, melee, etc., and this tier list will give you a pretty good idea of how I view the game as sniper. Some of these weapons pair better with one another, and it might raise them depending on what they're paired with, but I'm going to try and base this somewhat on just their individual stats, but also just my personal experiences with them and how they fit in the current meta of Team Fortress 2. So let's get right into it here, and quickly, the tier list is broken up into primary, secondary, and melee weapons, so farthest left in each category will be the best weapon, and the farthest to the right will be the worst. So this isn't all of the weapons bunched together. It is broken up into primary, secondary, melee. If you did them all together, the primary weapons would pretty much all be the best weapons, right? So, that's kind of stupid. So that's how it's going to be, and let's get into it. So we're going to start with melee weapons. I think objectively, the best sniper melee weapon is the Bushwacker. You pair it with the Jbird, and it's one of the hardest 1-2 combos in all of TF2. It's just fantastic. You can get spies off of you. You can one-shot almost any class with it if they've got Jbird on them. Chances are you're not breaking out your melee weapon unless you're in a really desperate situation anyway, so you pair it with that, and it's a legitimate tool at close range. So I think that combo, I know I said I was going to try and base on individual stats, but because the Jbird and the Bushwacker are so often comboed with one another, the Bushwacker just has to be the number one. I think number two is probably just your stock kukri. If you're playing casually, the amount of crits you're going to get with a melee weapon, and the fact that this doesn't have kind of a base multiplier on certain scenarios, stuff like that, it's going to be consistently do some good damage, and then, the random crits will make it a one-hit kill a lot of the time. The stock kukri, you can't really go wrong with it as a melee weapon. Really solid. Chances are if you've broken it out, you probably need the random hit if you're going to get that kill anyway, or you should be killed by whoever you're fighting. So the fact that it has random crit possibility and a good base damage puts it number two there for me. Number three, it's between the Shiv now and the Shahansha. I like the Shahansha. I think it's funny that, the lower health you are, the more damage it does. There is some practicality behind that, in that if you're breaking out your melee as a sniper, chances are you've already been rushed down and are in a really desperate situation. And I kind of like the idea that when you're below a certain amount of health, you get this kind of like a rage mechanic, kind of like in Smash Brothers, at least the last two Smash Brothers games, where the more damage you are, you get this. If this kind of kicks in, you've got a higher chance of just pulling out more damage. Not higher chance, you just get more base damage on the weapon. And if you're full health and you're whacking people with a weapon, a melee weapon, a sniper, you deserve to do less damage, because you should be doing other things other than trying to whack someone with a melee weapon. So I think for me that trumps the Tribalman Shiv, which is going to go at fourth on this list. It's just not useful enough. It does almost no damage, and the bleed is so slow that you could probably argue it's not bad, because if you hit a spy with it and then try and go invisible, you can track them because you can see the bleed effect bouncing off them while they're invisible. But that is so rare. The damage that comes from the bleed is so minimal. So for every other melee weapon, basically a sniper, the amount of instant damage you're going to get is so much more valuable to you than how much accumulated damage you're going to get out of the Shiv. Because if you hit someone with a Shiv and they're bleeding and then you die, then they bleed out, well, it's like, okay, that's funny. But if it was another weapon, you probably would have killed them in one hit. So probably objectively the worst sniper melee weapon. Doesn't really have any good combos that goes with anything else. Has some niche possibilities, which is what makes, these tier lists fun. Maybe someone will put it up there because they love hitting spies with it and showing them, and that's totally cool. But for me, very little practicality, wouldn't really ever use it. So moving on to secondary weapons now. This will be interesting because there is actually a much wider variety here. So I think number one has to be Jbird. That's a hard one to argue, in my opinion. Jbird is just an unbelievably valuable secondary as a sniper. Great for your individual use. You pair it with the Bushwacker. Even if you just want to no-scope people afterwards, if they're Jbird, mini crits are so insanely valuable. Great at revealing spies. extinguish teammates and yourself when you're on fire. There's almost never any reason not to run Jbird. If I was listing this like a classic tier list and there was like S tier and then A, B, C, D, E, blah, 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 Jbird would be an S tier, league above the rest of these secondaries in my opinion. It's amazing and competitive. If you're running anything but Jbird and Highlander, you're insane because you can do some crazy team combos with it. And you're probably, with team comp stuff like that, getting backstabbed is maybe less frequent, or having the Razorback is almost pointless. So Jbird, number 1 on this list, which I guess makes this thing number 2 on the list. I don't know, just a skin for the Jbird. Can't remember when it came out, but whatever. Kind of cool, but no different, obviously. So after that, it gets a little trickier. You get the SMGs and then the backpack style sniper weapons. For me personally, and this is just my personal opinion, I think the SMG is the next best secondary weapon. It gives you a ton of versatility, combining it with, taking a sniper shot, and say you hit a 150 on a soldier or a demo or any class where a 150 won't insta-kill them. You just whip out the SMG and a couple mid-range or short-range shots and you secured yourself a kill. You can argue that a no-scope would be just as effective, but not nearly as consistent as just pulling out that SMG and taking down that last bit of health on a target. It's also great when, you get a scout or a spy right up in your face. I think people underestimate how valuable it can be to just put damage on a target that's on you. People get very complacent when they're fighting, and if you're a sniper just trying to quickscope someone right in your face over and over again and you're doing no damage, people will relax. When they're relaxed, they're going to aim better and they're going to kill you faster. If you pull out that SMG and you're hitting every other shot and you're not doing a ton of damage, but it's slowly racking up, and they see their health dropping, they're going to start freaking out, and it's going to make them do things they wouldn't normally do. So I think the SMG is extremely underrated in that regard. And it's just one of my favorite weapons to use. Cool hit scan weapon, very tracking based. I think it helps you improve at the game more so than a lot of the other secondaries. So really fun. I love it. After that, the Cleaner's Carbine. No, I never use the Cleaner's Carbine. I think honestly it is the worst secondary of all of the items on this list. So its drawbacks are just too much of a penalty in my opinion to make it worth using. So we'll get to that after. So that leaves the backpack style secondary items. These ones are interesting, probably a little bit polarizing depending on the environment you're playing in, what kind of pubs you're playing in, what enemies are on the other team. These ones are incredibly situational. For that reason, I'm going to put the Cozy Camper as the next best one because I think it has the best overall versatility of all of these backpack style weapons. The no knockback or flinch when 100% charged it's nice. This was probably this item was very close to Jbird levels, maybe even the best sniper secondary before it was patched, when the no flinching or knockback was just applied on any shot. But I think the full scope, full charge aspect of it was a good change. It was just too useful before. So you combine that with the passive health regeneration, and this is a solid item. I think it's, as much as it says it's the Cozy Camper, I actually think this weapon kind of promotes some aggressive play, because if you're just sitting there, you're probably going to get backstabbed with this thing on. The no flinching thing, I guess that kind of sounds like something where you're just camping there, fully scoped, waiting, but you can be aggressive and still fully charge up shots when enemies are close by, they're going to turn a corner, etc., etc. Maybe you're just going for a heavy or a overhealed target. So I actually think this is a really versatile and interesting weapon. I don't use it too often, but it definitely has its place, and I could see people just having this on all the time and not really thinking about it, and maybe never using any other secondary. So it's an interesting weapon. After that, it's close. I think the Danger Shield is fine. I don't know. It used to be the best weapon in the game, or the best secondary in the game, when it just gave you plus 25 health. You can't really argue that's just that was broken. And then you combine it with the old, I don't know who's even going to remember this, but back when the class hat sets were out, and if you had all 3 items or whatever, it was like the Bushwacker, the Danger Shield, and then the Crocodile hat. You Headshots could not kill you, no matter how much health you had. If you had more than 1 health and you were headshot, it would just take you down to 1 HP. So when that was the thing, this was obviously broken. But now, I don't know. I see no reason to use it. I guess if the other team has 5 pyros and you just want that fire resistance, that's something. And with how prevalent scorch shots and detonators are, it definitely has its place in the meta, but it's pretty darn niche. For that reason, I think I'm going to put the Razorback ahead of it. Razorback is one of those items that, it's super lazy. It's because if you've got your head on a swivel and, your headphones on, you're listening for decloaks, you're aware of spy patterns, you can probably avoid being backstabbed pretty often. But that's just, sometimes it's just unrealistic. Sometimes I'm just playing a pub and maybe I've got some music on or, I'm just zoned out, just focused on what's in front of me. Having that Razorback and forcing a spy to come at me with a pistol, and I'm going to be honest, if a spy has to pull out his pistol, I'm pretty damn confident I've got almost a 50-50 chance of turning on him, winning that fight before he can get 3 shots off. So for me personally, I like the Razorback. I put it on. I use it. Probably it's my second most used secondary after the SMG. I'm pretty atypical. I never use Girardi. I used to a lot. Don't use it anymore. I use the SMG and the Razorback because I am a lazy piece of garbage who just likes not having to think about a spy being behind me. And sometimes it even has some strategy. If a spy's right in your face and he's trying to butter knife you or something, you can do a quick 180, let him stab your Razorback, and because the shock function happens on it where the spy gets stuck in his stab animation, you can't see it, but I actually did the stab animation in real life. That doesn't benefit you. But when you get stuck in that, you've got like a second to just do whatever you want to the spy. So it's fun. But yeah, the danger shield, it's going to go behind it. It's probably a better secondary, but I don't know. I just think in the context of just doing your own thing, having fun, chilling, not always being vigilant with checking for spies all around you, and how often people will go spy in pubs just to try and counter you, I think the Razorback actually has a place, and it's actually more useful in danger shield a lot of the time. With all that said, the Cleaner's Carbine goes to the end. Garbage weapon. I'm pretty darn confident that other than maybe when the weapon was first released, I don't think I've ever equipped it or thought of equipping it. And I'm pretty sure I've never even run into a sniper using it. So it's pretty irrelevant. I think it would need some kind of buff or just a complete overhaul. I don't think it needs to exist. The SMG is like the perfect secondary for what it is. So I think you just make it into something cooler. I have no idea as to what that is. That's not what this is about. So waste of a secondary, totally pointless. I don't understand why it exists. So moving on to the good stuff. We are now into the primary weapons. These are the ones I'm obviously asked about the most, which to me is weird because I think all of these have their obvious flaws, and I think in a lot of scenarios, their position is pretty well laid out. I think the better you get at Sniper, the more you realize the value of each of these weapons, or the lack of value some of them have. So first and foremost, there it is. Stock sniper rifle, and I guess inherently the AUM, even though honestly, something about the sound of the AUM in this game is kind of dinky. Maybe it's taken straight from Counter-Strike, I don't know. It just doesn't sound great in my opinion. It sounds wimpy. A little BB gun-ish, but whatever. It still looks cool. I play without view models, so maybe not as big a factor for me, but yeah. Stock and the AUM, it doesn't get any better than that. That is the sniper, is the stock rifle. Charge rate feels just right. Headshots for 150, consistent. Being able to no scope is a huge deal for me. We'll get into that later when we talk about the Mackinaw, but I think that's huge. Whenever I'm playing in a pub and someone body shots me and kills me or whatever, and they apologize in chat, I'm very tempted to yell at them in chat and be like, I don't care. Like, you killed me. I don't care. You don't need to headshot me to kill me. It's great to headshot people. That's what you should be going for. But if you've got to stop and no-scope somebody because you know they've got less than 50 health, do it. Why waste your time lining up a difficult headshot? Pointless to me. And I think that kind of elitism in sniping that, body shots are so frowned upon, it stops people from improving. Because what a stupid idea to not just go for a no-scope if you know it's going to get you the kill. Stock rifle, number one in my opinion. I'm sure some people have their arguments against that, but, that's kind of your personal opinion. Number two, for me, for sure, is going to be the Bazaar.
I think on paper you have a great argument for saying that it is the best primary weapon for sniper in the game. It has a base charge rate that is 50% lower than the stock sniper rifle, which is its only negative compared to the stock rifle. And once you have 2 headshot kills, you are using a rifle that is identical to the stock rifle, that only has upside once you start getting more headshot kills. Up to 6 headshot kills, and you're looking at a 100% increase in charge rate, which that is just objectively better than the stock rifle. And when you have those 6 kills, or I think pretty clearly even when you have the 3 headshot kills and you're at 25% better charge rate than the stock rifle, you're looking at the objectively best primary weapon for a sniper in TF2. So all those things together, I think aesthetically it looks amazing, it sounds great, this is a crazy good weapon. The only thing for me that puts it below the stock rifle, in my opinion, and this is, again, probably very easily argued by other people, but I would say that the Bizarre Bargain can change your mentality when you're playing the game. I like the consistency of the stock rifle, always having the same charge rate. I know you don't get the upside after the 2 headshot kills, but having that consistency in the rifle is really important to me. And I think the mentality aspect of it kicks in when you have, let's say you have no heads, you start playing a little bit differently because you want to get up to at least the 2 heads. That'll give you the same base charge rate as the stock rifle. And then even let's say you have 6 heads. I think maybe you'll play a little bit more passively because you are afraid of losing those heads and losing the advantage that the Bizarre Bargain inherently comes with. So I don't think that a rifle making you change the way you play the game is a bad thing at all. I think it's a really great concept for a rifle, and I think it's really good that it makes people change their approach to how they play the game sometimes, find a good comfort zone, things like that. But, I mean, I have 2,400 hours on Sniper. At this point, I know how I like to play the game, and I really love the consistency of the stock rifle, knowing that when I start my life with that rifle, when I end my life with that rifle, my approach never has to change because my baseline is exactly the same. And I think the Bizarre Bargain can just change that. And again, like I said, that's very easily argued for and against, I'd say. So I think on paper, Bizarre Bargain could definitely be the best rifle in the game. But at the end of the day, 2 headshot kills is, I know it doesn't sound like much, and I wouldn't say it's much personally, but if you don't get those, this rifle is worse than the stock rifle. And again, I think the way it changes your gameplay a little bit here and there is the only thing that stands in its way from being the best primary weapon for Sniper, but it's incredibly close between the stock and the Bizarre. This is a really big personal preference for me. A lot of my strange weapons are stock rifles, so maybe that affects it a little bit too. I like using those ones, getting my kills up, but the Bizarre is an incredible weapon, super, super close. I think all the rifles after it are nowhere close to the stock of the Bizarre. Personally, I put it just slightly below the stock rifle.
Okay, so after the Bizarre, that's when things start getting a little interesting. You've got the Shooting Star / Mackinaw, and I think competing for this next spot is the Mackinaw and the Heatmaker. Ooh, that's a tough one. I don't use either of them very often at all. You might even have a case for the Sydney Sleeper being better than both of them. You might even be able to argue that Sydney Sleeper is the best primary weapon in the game. That's an argument you'd have a tough time making to me, but I don't know. I could see someone out there bring up some valid points. That's not what I'm going to talk about, and it's going to fall lower down in this tier list. I think for me, we're going to have to put the Mackinaw, actually the Shooting Star, because it's way cooler than the Mackinaw, but those two in their positions here at 4th, tied for 4th on this tier list. We're going to put the Heatmaker right behind it so I can kind of compare the two. The Heatmaker's cool. The focus ability is very interesting, and I think it's a cool addition to the Sniper's kit. It's one of those weapons where maybe you don't use it very often and you give it a try, and it's extremely satisfying to build up that charge and then let a bunch of these crazy tracer shots go. You're just in scope, firing them off. It's very interesting, and it can create for some really cool moments, some really cool clips. But I think for overall consistency, the Mackinaw and the Shooting Star are really solid. I think their drawbacks are huge, and I don't think they even touch the Bizarre or the stock rifle because of them. The fact that you can't no-scope, that's huge. I don't understand why people discredit that so much as a negative. That's a big deal. Hitting a 150 on somebody and then not having to scope back in, but just being able to pop a little no-scope at them, that's so valuable. And the fact that Mackinaw doesn't have that is a big deal. And another huge drawback to this weapon that people don't seem to realize or talk about is the tracer. The tracer is an incredibly huge negative on this weapon. As soon as you shoot, no matter what you're shooting at, how aware they are of you, how unaware they are of you, every single player on the server knows exactly where you are and where you took that shot from. You have no element of surprise. And as a sniper, element of surprise can get you a ton of kills. If you watch a lot of my videos, most of the people I'm shooting at have no idea I'm there because you can shoot from such long range. And the difference between shooting at a target who doesn't know you're shooting at them and shooting at one that does is vast. As soon as somebody knows you're shooting at them and they're a half-decent player, their movement's going to start getting erratic and they're going to start targeting you. So I think for that reason, the shooting star and the Mackinaw don't even come close to the top of this tier list. But the penetrating enemies and the overall damage increase from the headshots, and I think body shots too, so just the full charge rate of them, it's really good. The weapon does a ton of damage and it's very fun to use. And I think because it plays very much like the stock rifles in how you're looking to headshot and the fact that you can get awesome penetration kills, I think that's what puts it above the Heatmaker. So yeah, I think that rounds out those style weapons. I don't know if people are gonna hate me for putting the bows so low on this list. I don't use them. That's pretty simple. They're really fun, and I'm sure some people maybe only use them. You're kind of playing a different class at that point. You're not playing the sniper class anymore. You're playing an archer class. I think you need to be using a rifle as your primary to call yourself a sniper main, and that's totally cool. You can be an archer main. That's totally fine, but it's a completely different weapon. It's a projectile. It's not hit scan. So I don't know. I'm torn because the classic is going to be dead last on this tier list no matter what. The classic is straight garbage. It's in Cleaner's Carbine territory. Maybe I'll make a video where I use the classic, the Carbine, and like the Tribesman's Shib just to show off how terrible those items are all at once. That'll be last. But I think I got to put the Sydney Sleeper here because like the bows are cool, but man, hit scan is so damn valuable. And even if you can't hit headshots, the Sydney Sleeper is really, really solid. Being able to apply Girardi to other people means that, even if you don't hit them with a headshot, I know it's redundant because, you fully charge them and you hit them for 150 and then they're Girardi'd and they get killed by another person because they're Girardi'd and weak. It's like, oh, that's great. You could have just headshot them and killed them instantly. I get it. That's why it's almost the bottom of the rifle list here, but it's still damn good. And headshots are not always easy to hit. Some people aren't trying to hit headshots. And if you're not trying to hit headshots, hell, that's where the argument can come in that maybe this is the best rifle in the game because it's still a hit scan weapon. The fact that it has the the active ability of applying Girardi on whatever the certain charge rate of it is, goddamn, like that's what a pain in the ass to play against, the Sydney Sleeper. It is the classic troll weapon. It can be fun as hell to use. I almost never use it. There was a time where I deleted every Sydney Sleeper I got because I was edgy sniper main who is, you're either hitting headshots or you're not playing the game properly. But man, I have grown out of that phase, and the Sydney Sleeper is hilarious, and it's legitimately useful. Doesn't compare with any of the rifles ahead of it because you can't headshot with it, but fun to use, and hell, you combine it with the Bushwacker and the Girardi, and you got an interesting little setup going. After that, we're going to put the Huntsman and the compound bow. Huntsman before the compound bow. I don't think I've ever used that weapon in my life, but whatever. Pointless reskin. Sure, it's promotional in some regard. These guys are down here because, like I said, this is a different class. This is an archer class. You're officially using a projectile, and anything that's not hit scan in this primary list is significantly worse, in my opinion. You can do some crazy awesome things with the bows. They're super, super fun. I would recommend if you're just looking to mix things up, you want to keep playing sniper, pull out the bow or the Sydney Sleeper or something and, have some fun. That's the way to keep this game fresh. But from a tier perspective and, how often I use them, which is very, very, very rarely, these guys just don't cut it. You're losing too much versatility, too much range. The one thing they are probably objectively better at is killing scouts or any class very close to you because of how hilariously large the arrow hitbox is, or how it reacts and interacts with the head hitboxes. So it is actually objectively better in that regard compared to all the rifles. But overall, just doesn't compare in my opinion. So they fall there. Last and certainly least is the classic. What a terrible weapon. Hilarious to use. Actually, I probably use it more than almost every other rifle on this list other than the stock and the Bazaar, just because of how funny it is to use and how incredibly satisfying it is to get kills with. If you use this weapon and you scope in with it, you're insane. Uh, all of the fun in this weapon comes from being scoped out and blowing people's heads off. It's basically like a super powered ambassador, but without all of the mobility and versatility of that weapon, or I mean, I guess what that weapon used to be. Yeah, really dumb weapon, but I'm really glad it exists. It's super funny. It's just a goofy weapon. You get some weird animations with it sometimes, where the sniper will be like, he can move fast. I don't know if they've patched that, but man, what a strange weapon. Definitely the worst. It's honestly, it might be worse than the SMG. Might be a better primary weapon than the classic is. You might have an argument to be made there. Yeah, still a ton of fun. So anyway, that is the list. Looking at it, it lined up pretty nicely. Your loadouts there, what the best loadouts are. Stock with Jbird and Bushwacker, probably about as good as it's going to get for versatility. Bazaar, stock SMG, and Shahansha. That's actually like that's a loadout I run a lot and is just super fun. I think the Shahansha, SMG, and the stock rifle are all my most used of each of those categories. The Shahansha is really fun. SMG is just old school, and so is the stock, and I love them so much. But all these weapons have their own, unique niche place in this game, and even though some of them are objectively worse than all of the others, they can all be used, except for the Cleaner's Carbine. What a stupid weapon. Everything else can be used. They're all really fun. It's one of the things that's allowed me to play 2,400 hours of Sniper, is being able to mix it up. And anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed a little bit of that insight. This video is probably way longer than it should have been for staring at the same screen. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and maybe I'll do more of these in the future.